Hi, in this video I'm going to be dealing with sampling in general on the OPXY, and in particular two of the sampling instruments, the drum and the sampler. I will deal with the multi-sampler in a separate video. Let's talk about some general stuff. Sampling is actually pretty easy on this device. In the past I've had some instruments that have been pretty hard to sample on, and to be honest it's put me off and I'm generally not bothered, but this is a breeze to sample on. So when you create a new project, by default the tracks that use samples are 1 and 2. So this is a drum instrument, as is this, okay, and track 8 has a multi-sampler. If I just change that to engine, you'll see this is a multi-sampler. So tracks 1, 2 and 8 have sampling instruments on them, and the rest are straightforward synths, okay? So for instance, this is the drum sampler on track 1. You've got all these one-shot drum samples which are great for sequencing, so you get like a drum beat going. Most of these samples are mono, some are stereo like that one, and you can change these samples and I'll show you that later on in the video. So that's the drum instrument. So this instrument is called multi-sampler. Just hold shift. So if I hold shift and 8, you'll see it's multi-sampler, and the patch is called band passer. So if I scroll down with the dark grey, or any of these in fact, doesn't matter which one you use. Let's go to refelt piano. This is a stereo multi-sample of a piano, I'm guessing, and you can see at the very top of the page, top of the display, you can see different areas on the keyboard where that piano has been sampled, multi-sampled, you see? So this is another sampling instrument. So if I hold shift and 1 and I change this to a sampling instrument, these are straightforward samples. So this is sort of old school. Let's find something a bit more suitable. This is just one sample spread across the keyboard. So a very, very basic old school type of sampler. There are a few scenarios where you can make your own samples. One, at any time when you're not on one of the 3 sampling instruments, you can be on any page, auxiliary, tracks, mixer, song, arrange, etc. So in that instance you don't need to have a sampling instrument up. You can simply sample straight away without any delay whatsoever. Second scenario is when you have a drum instrument in focus, like one of these. So this is a drum instrument and you can sample while you have this in focus. Third scenario is when you have a sampler instrument in focus. So let's go to this track here and we'll change it to a sampling instrument. At the moment it's a drum instrument, it's got the in phase kit. So let's go to shift and 1 and we'll change that to a sampler by scrolling down here. There we go. And now if I press this, it's an empty sampler instrument, so you could sample with this instrument in focus. And the other scenario, the fourth scenario, is when you have a multi-sampler instrument in focus. I'm probably not going to get to that one today because that's really another video all on its own. So let's deal with the first of those scenarios. You know what it's like, you're working away and you suddenly get this little idea for a tune or something, and you don't want to be bothered to plough through the menus getting to different sampling instruments. You just want to get something into the machine quickly, maybe a little idea of a tune that you can record just by la-la-la-ing into the mic. You're on an instrument, it's not a sampling instrument, so let's go to instrument 3. This is, if we hold shift and 3, you'll see that it's a prism synth and the patch is shoulder, my favourite bass sound on the instrument that I've discovered so far. So I can't sample, I can't play samples on this instrument, but that doesn't stop me from doing a sample very quickly while I'm on this particular instrument. So if you want to make a quick and dirty sample, just press the sample button, top right, that's this one here. It's got this kind of waveform graphic. Press that. Okay, so I've turned my mixer off now so that we don't hear my voice coming through into this. Now before we start to record, there's a few things we can set up. The dark grey encoder over here scrolls through all the input sources. At the moment it's set on mic, and you can see level coming through, so that's good. If I wanted to record from other sources, I turn the encoder to the right and that'll take me to the headset mic, the line in, the USB-C and the resampling. And if I just click again, that'll take me straight back to the mic, or I could have scrolled all the way back. So that's the dark grey encoder. I've chosen the onboard mic because that's how I'm going to make my sample. If I just unplug this audio lead here, you'll see that the mic now has a red line going through it, showing that the monitoring through the internal speaker is turned off. This is to prevent feedback. So we'll just plug that back in again and you'll see that red line disappear. Now obviously you can see if the mic's working just by rubbing your finger near to the mic. The mic is this little hole in the device here. That's where the mic is. Don't scratch with your fingernail, be careful, otherwise you'll damage your casing. The mid grey encoder here doesn't do anything. The light grey encoder adjusts the gain of the audio being recorded, so it could be really low or really high. It goes up to 20. I normally find that plus 15, you'll see it up the top there, is okay for this. The white encoder over here changes the threshold of the recording. If the red horizontal line is near the top like this is going to need a lot of level from me to kick the thing into record. So I tend to bring it down here. As I'm talking, you'll see that it's reaching that red line, and that's going to be fine. It's kind of a noise gate, I guess. So before I make this sample, I'm going to press the note on the keyboard where I want this sample to be. So I'm going to press the lowest C where this kind of staircase is here, okay? And then I'm going to hold M1, which is this button here. Then I'm going to make my sample. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you see my sample's gone in there. You can see the 4 small waveforms for my 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've successfully recorded a sample. In very, very small font, just above here, you'll see the name of the sample. So to hear this sample, I press the play button, which is M2. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I didn't like this sample and I wanted to delete it, I'd press M4. I'm not going to do that because I want to keep the sample. Okay, so I'm happy with the sample. Just going to press the track again. So where has my sample gone? So if I press the key where I made that sample on this bass synth instrument, it's just playing the bass synth because this is not a sampling instrument. So where has my sample gone? This new sample gets saved automatically to the OPXY's sample user folder, and then you can use it in any of the sampling instruments you like. The name of the sample will be the project name, the note where it was sampled, and the sample number. So if I want to see this, I'm going to need my computer. So to do this, I'm going to press the COM button here. Okay. Now I've got to do something. I'm using a Mac, so I've got to boot up a special program on my Mac. So if I go to my applications folder, and the app I want is called Field Kit. Now if I double click it, you won't see anything come up on the computer. So to utilise this, I'm going to have to plug in my USB-C cable, which links my OPXY to my computer. This is the cable. It goes just in front of the power switch here. Now you can see the MTP is lit up in white, so if I click that, on my computer now I've got this Finder window which is showing me at the top the serial number of my OPXY. I'm going to blur that out for security reasons. And these items down here, there's a text file which explains how this works. I'm not going to go through that. And at the moment all we're interested in is this samples folder. So if I click the disclosure triangle, go to user, the sample I'm interested in is called Sampling on XY. That's the name of the song, you remember. C3 is the note that I sampled it on, and 0 because this is the first sample I've done. I don't know if it's on this song or if it's on this note, but we'll come to that, and it's a WAV file. OPXY can accept WAV and AIFF files, which is the Apple type of sample. So this is just a basic WAV file, tiny file, 272 kilobytes. And I could delete it here, I could change the name of it if I wanted to. I could type in something else. I'll leave it at that for the moment. But that's where you find and delete and rename your samples. Now, I'm not looking at this on my computer. This is the computer looking at these files on my OPXY. So if I do anything in this folder, it'll automatically be updated on the OPXY. I'm actually dealing with the OPXY, so if I trash this, it's going to be trashed on the device straight away. And obviously here I could drop samples into this folder. So I've got another folder on my computer. Right, so I'm going to make sure that I'm on my user folder here. I'm going to highlight a few of these. Got to be so careful these days of copyright strikes. These are all my own samples that I made of my wife talking. So I'm going to copy drag these into this folder. Okay, that's good, isn't it? And once you've finished, you press M4 again to eject your OPXY from your computer, and you carry on. So I want to be able to play that sample I've made, so I'm going to use a drum instrument to do that. Now I know I've got a drum instrument on track 1, okay? So I'm going to play that sample, that 1, 2, 3, 4 sample on this drum instrument. So if I press this button here, this low kick drum, okay, if I bring this sample in, it's going to come in onto this kick drum key. So hold shift and the sample button, scroll down with the dark grey encoder until we get to user. And just to show you, if I go to another one of my samples here.
And it was just amazing.
That's my wife speaking. The one I did today was this one, sampling on XYC30. 1, 2, 3, 4. All these other samples are unaffected. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's only this one here that's had that sample loaded into it. So there's another way to play this sample, and that's using a sampler instrument. So if I go to instrument track 2, where another drum instrument lives at the moment, I'm going to change this to a sampler instrument. So I'm going to hold shift and then 1. So I scroll down with the dark grey encoder until I get to sampler. Okay, press the 2 again. Now I've got an empty sampler instrument on this track. Right, let's go to shift and sample button and scroll down to user. Going to find my sample. Here it is. So I'm holding this kind of staircase button, this C note here. I've had to drop it 1, 2, an octave, and now it's playing at the correct pitch. So that's creating a sample and bringing it into either a drum instrument or a sampler instrument. Let's now sample while we're on this sampler instrument. Okay, so you press the sample button, and this time you choose which keyboard note to sample to. So I'm going to press the sample button. I'm going to press this key which has got RND on it, which is something to do with the step components. So that's where I'm going to sample to. It says press key to sample. I've got my mic set up on all the threshold and the input volume, input gain, so it's all ready to go. So I'm going to hold this key and say something else, and then we'll see what happens. So I'm going to record my sample to this button here. And don't forget, I'm on the sampler instrument at the moment. 5, 6, 7, 8. This time I do hear the sample by pressing the key that I chose, because I'm on a sampler instrument. Before I was on a bass instrument, wasn't I? I was on a synth. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5. And this is a mono sample, so there it is in the display there. Okay, so that's good. So I've made another sample. And if I play different keys, 5, 6, 7, 8.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's real old school sampling, isn't it? Where the pitch goes up and down, and we get the kind of chipmunk effect up here, and you know, the really low pitched slurry sound down lower on the keyboard. And that's how I used to sample back in the 80s on my old Akai. I think it's 6112. Used quick discs. There was one sample each side of the disc, and I had the fabled girl's voice sample, which I used on loads of my tracks back in those days. So that's sampling on a sampler instrument. let's sample on a drum instrument. And so we'll come over to track 1. I'm just going to load in a fresh one, so I'm going to hold shift and that instrument. I'm going to come away from this kit and go back to it. Now it's restored to its former glory. So track 1, drum instrument, and we are ready to go. If you get lost doing this, you do what I just did then. You come over to this window and you choose another kit. I'll come back to that kit and then you'll be back where you were. Now, before you make the sample, press the key where you want it to be. I'll use this G where the clap is. That's where I'll make my sample. Now it says press red dot to sample. So I hold this red dot, which is M1 of course, and we'll see what happens. 9, 10, 11, 12. My sample's in. The name of it is above. It's very, very tiny, but I can tell you it is sampling on XY, and it says G2 note. So I sampled to this G2 note here. I could clear this, by the way, if I wanted to, but I don't want to. So I'll press the instrument number 1 again. If I press this key here, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got that sample recorded to this key here, but all the other notes are unaffected. 9, 10, 11, 12. And holding down on that, I could copy this and paste it to another key. I'm not going to do that for the moment. Now, you can sample in time of the project, and obviously this is being more musical. It is possible to record samples with the song running. This is not as elegant as using a dedicated recording device like the OP1. Once you've recorded your sample, you'll probably have to trim it up so that it fires at the right time, and the drum instrument is probably your best bet for this scenario. So I'm going to save this song. So I hold the project button. I call it the nib button because it's got a pen nib on it. Press save. I'm going to load in another project of mine just to demonstrate this. This song called Saturday. Press load. Now, supposing I want to sample something along with this. Okay, I'm going to press the red dot to sample. Just going to press play. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my sample. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I just put a trig in here on this first key. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can hear it's vaguely in time of the track. I'd have to trim the sample up. But you can see that you can record in time of the track if you want to. And you could use the metronome, all kinds of things. It's a bit crude, it's a bit hit and miss, but it is doable. But I would really suggest that you're on the wrong machine if you're wanting to do this kind of thing. You're better off with a dedicated device, something like the OP1. Okay, so we're back on our sampling on XY project, and we're going to talk about the sample library now. So with the sample library, you can only get access to this if you are on a sampling instrument, like the drum instrument, the sampler instrument, or the multi-sampler instrument. You know, you've seen it in action already. Let's go to this drum instrument here. So I'll shift and the sampler instrument. Obviously the user folder has all your samples in. I'm already accruing quite a few samples today from the stuff I've been doing. All these folders are in alphabetical order, from band parser all the way down to Vox, and the samples in those folders are over here on the right. And by the way, you know, I showed you that MTP, which is the media transfer protocol thing with the COM, okay, earlier on. If you want to make folders for your samples, you can only do it at one level. So in the sample folder, you can make other folders, but you can't make folders inside those because the OPXY won't see it. So we're in our library here. Whatever sample you pick is instantly assigned to the key. So if I go to but all the other keys are unaffected because this is the drum sampler. It's literally one at a time. And notice how the display dynamically updates with the sample that's already been assigned. So if I go to the kick drum, it's kick boop A, that's the boop kit kick drum. Okay, and this one here is my 9, 10, 11, 12. That's that sample I made a little while ago. There's the rim and there's the tambourine. You get the idea. And you see a little thumbnail over here, okay, of the actual waveform, and underneath it shows you the key that the sample has been assigned to. So my 9, 10, 11, 12. 9, 10, 11, 12 sample has been assigned to snare drum 1 button. Right, so let's talk about sample editing now. So the dark grey encoder changes the start points. If I bring it in here, you'll see 9, 10, 11, 9. 12. Now it's really nice and tight to the start of the sample. If I press down on that, you'll see I've got a much zoomed in view of that, so I can really get it tight. 9, 10, 11, if I press that again, it zooms out again. 12, 9, 10, the mid-grey encoder changes the loop point. That's a little bit hard to see, but you can probably see that line moving, and that's the loop in. Here's the loop out, so it'll be the 10 that loops. 9, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. You see? Let's just take those loop points out for a moment. So that's the loop in and out. And the white encoder, if I rotate that to the left, changes the end of the sample. 9, 10, 11, 12. 9, 10, 11, 12. It's still looping, as you can hear, and we'll change that in a moment. Again, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out on any of those. We've got shift functions here. So if I hold shift and I rotate the dark grey, it's going to change the direction of the sample. So that's 9, 10, forward. 11, 12, 9, 10. Now if you look at the arrow, it's now going the other way. Reversing, see? So we'll change it the other way. So it's forward again. The mid-grey encoder changes the pitch. So at the moment it's plus 17. So it's a bit weird on this instrument getting the pitch correct, but you can see that this mid-grey encoder changes the pitch. Now if I click that, you'll see there's a bracket around the numbers on the right, and now it will increment in ones. See? And if I end up on, say, 27 and click that again, it'll increment in tens up and down from that, see? So yeah, you can't reset that sadly by double clicking it, which would have been good. So we'll bring that to 0, but it's going to be very
9, 10, 11, 12. 9, 10, 11, 12. 9, 10, 11.
chipmunky at the moment. We'll bring the octave down.
9, 10, 11, 12.
The light grey knob changes the crossfade if I hold shift. Not sure it's going to make much difference with this.
9, 10, 11, 12.
I think that'll make more sense if I'm using a kind of a synth sound. And the white encoder changes the volume.
9, 10, 11, 12. 9, 10, 11,
So?
12.
Now if I hold shift and press the light grey encoder, it changes the loop mode. Now at the moment it's on loop forever.
9, 10.
Keep an eye on this graphic here. So now the loop's off.
9, 10, 11, 12.
It just plays through and stops. If I click it again, and this is loop until release. Let's just change those loop points, shall we?
9, 10, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 12.
Right, see, so there it worked. While I was holding the key down, it was looping, and I lifted off, it went. For some reason, when you make a new sample, it defaults to being in loop forever mode, and I'm not sure why. Now, if I call up a factory sample, and we'll call up Dark Choir. And I press that instrument button, you see we've got a stereo sample here, and here you can see the loop in and out points as dots in the middle, and they're colour coded. The loop in is mid grey and the loop out is light grey. You can see the dots moving as I change those loop points. Right, let's talk about hearing and editing the existing sounds on a drum kit, on a drum instrument. So I've called this one up. If I go to the library, if I press shift and 1, you can see it's the Boop drum kit. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. And if I press that number 1 again, and if I go to the library by pressing shift and the sample button, you'll see all the different samples that are used on this kit. press number 1 again to go back to the waveforms. Like I said earlier in the video, some of these are stereo, most of them are mono samples, and you can edit them. 9, 10, 11, 12, and of course I've got my sample on there from earlier. So if I wanted to get rid of that, I would go to Shift and number 1, come away from boop, go back to it, and now I've got all the original sounds on those keys. The one thing you have to remember when you are editing using the drum instrument is that the knobs work differently to the way they do for the sampler instrument. For instance, the dark grey encoder, this changes the pitch. Now on the sampler instrument that changed the in point, didn't it? So this is the pitch, up and down, and of course usual thing, if you press down on that you get the number in the brackets, and then it goes up and down in ones. And wherever you stop, if you then click again, it'll go up in tens from that point. So I stopped on 6, I think. So it's 16, 26, 36. Click it again, and you're back to ones. Okay, so the dark grey encoder is for the pitch. Now on the other instrument, on the sampler instrument, these are the loop points, but on this drum instrument, these are the start and end points of the sample. Okay? So it's different, you have to bear this in mind. It's very easy to get confused when you jump from one instrument to another. These are colour coded, so mid grey for the start point and light grey for the end point. The white encoder controls the playback of the sample. Let's just go back to something like a snare drum. Now at the moment you can see at the top right there's an arrow with a line. So if I press the key once, the sample plays to the end because it's got that end stop, if you like, to the right of the arrow. In fact, if I come all the way back, I've just got an arrow now, and now the sample will stop the moment I take my finger off the key. Whereas with the end stop, it'll go to the end, just one press. Go back to that. It will get to the end, but I've got to keep my finger down. Right, this third example is a choke group. It says arrow and a G. G stands for group. So if I make this the same, the one next to it here, give this a G. Now they will choke each other off, you see? And this is handy for closed and open hi-hats, of course. Let's do it with these. So these, you can see, are both in choke groups. They've both got that, you see, whereas this hasn't. So these two choke each other off for obvious reasons, as in real life with a proper drum kit. In real life, if you were playing an open hi-hat and you shut the two hi-hats together, like that, well, that's what you're emulating on this device. So that's the G. Let's come back to our Guiro. Now if we go one further over, this is a looping arrow, and it indicates that the sample will keep replaying whilst you keep your finger on the note, and you might have to wait a bit to hear the repeats. So it's a very long sample, but it will repeat. Let's go to a short sample like this and change that to looping. See, you get the very quick repeats there. Now, holding shift and rotating the encoders gives you 4 more options. So if you hold shift and rotate the dark grey, you change the direction of the sample. Okay, mid grey is the panning, so shift, I'm going to bring this all the way over to the right. The light grey is a fade in, so See, I've cut the attack off too much. It's like an attack, isn't it? So you've got a number there which you can see, and if you, I think you can do it fade out as well here, so I've turned it round the other way now. So you can have both fade in and fade out, I think. Yes. And clicking obviously takes you from one to the other. The white is the volume. So this is the drum kit, remember, and this is all per note, per sample, which is brilliant, isn't it? So you can really fine tune your drum kit to the way you want it. And to change the sample, you play a note on the keyboard and then press and hold shift and the sample button. This brings up the sample library page. So let's say, for instance, I want to change this kick drum. So shift and sample, and I'm on the kick folder there. So scroll down with any of these three. Let's keep playing it. You get instant feedback, and you hear what the sound's going to be like. And then if you're happy, just press the number 1 again, and now that sound is locked into that kit. Every note in all the drum kits has a default name irrespective of what sound is assigned to it. So I've made a little list here of my estimations of what those abbreviations are related to. I'm not sure about a couple, but the listing is lowest note to highest. So if I go to the library and I press the various keys going up, you can see that it's changing. So it's kick drum 1, kick drum 2, snare drum 1, snare drum 2, rim, shot, clap, I think that's tambourine, shaker. This is, I think, closed hi-hat. Supposed to be claves of that, but that sound isn't. It's a hi-hat of some description. Open hi-hat. This is supposed to be CAB cabata, but the sound is obviously a clave, I think. And I've got low tom-tom, ride cymbal, mid tom, crash cymbal, these are all okay. High tom, this is supposed to be a cowbell, but it isn't, it's actually a triangle. So this is supposed to be low tom, not sure if that is a low tom. No, it's saying HC, so a high conga sound has been assigned to the low tom key. And this is LC, which is low conga, but it's obviously a cowbell. Guiro, that's been assigned to the WS key, which is whistle, I think. And then this is high conga. This last one is supposed to be Guiro. In this case, it's, I don't know what that is. No idea what that is, but anyway. So my point is the keys all have a default name. Okay, but you can assign any sound to those keys. You can also sample from a sound source like an iPhone, and you can plug your cable into the line-in socket. Right, so to get this running, I've got to change the input source. So I'm going to change to sampler. I'm going to change the input source to line-in. So I go 1 to the right, which is the headset mic, 1 more is the line in, and it's kind of a mini jack graphic there. If I play this, it's coming in, the sound's coming in. Now let's just make sure we're on a sampler instrument. So let's go to this instrument here. It's on a sampler, that's fine. Okay, that's all good. Bring the threshold down a bit. Oh, that's interesting. Now the input gain for the line in goes up to 31. I could turn the iPad up a bit as well. That's too loud now, see? So let's turn the input gain down. Something fine, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to this time press key to sample. Because I'm in the sampling instrument, I press a key. So we'll just use this kick drum 1. You can see the sample coming in here. I think we get 20 seconds. You've got to keep your finger on the key, obviously. That'll do fine, that's good. So we've now got our sample in. You can see it's a stereo sample. Now obviously all the keys are going to give me that sample at a different pitch and at a different speed. But there we are on that key at the correct pitch. It's rather quiet, isn't it? So let's go to our various controls. Let's turn it up. Okay, and obviously you can do all the, changing the start point, end point, loop points. You change the playback to reverse. It's quite fun, isn't it? You can detune it. You do all the things I showed you earlier. I won't bore you stiff with that now, but that's bringing in a stereo sample from an audio line in this case my iPad. So basically if you have a sample instrument set up and you press sample, then obviously you press the key to sample. If it's not a sampling instrument, you press the M1 like I showed you earlier. Right, the last thing I want to deal with is resampling, and this is a lot of fun. I'm going to load in a different song for this. So what is resampling? Well, let's say this is very useful for locking together whole chunks of audio on the device. And it's like the old-fashioned bouncing down we did back in the day, back in the 50s and the 60s. I was watching an excellent video by Shimmery the other day, and he's done a great video on this subject of resampling, and he said it's just like the Beatles did, and he's not wrong there. So let's say you've used 7 out of your 8 tracks. I haven't in this instance, but to say for sake of argument that I had. What do you do if you want to make more tracks? Well, you simply bounce those 7 or however many tracks you've done down to 1 track, and then you can record over the other ones. What I'll do here, I haven't used track 8 here, so I'm going to make this a drum track. So let's go to, going to turn this into a drum. Okay, right, that's good, so come back to that. Now if I press the sample button up here, I'm going to turn this all the way over to the right to the resample icon, which is the arrow pointing to a tiny O. So now I'm in resampling. Now I press the sample button and a note on the keyboard where I want the sample to be. I'll have it on this key here, the C, which is the little staircase, the ramp up. Now all I've got to do is press and hold the M1 button and then press start. There's my sample. Now it's a bit quiet, so if I hold shift and the white coder gets rotated, there's my locked together sample. That's the sum of everything else just on this track 8, which is really good. So then I could, turn stuff off. I could erase the other tracks if I wanted to, so you could mute the old tracks or record new material. Now you can resample into the sampler instrument. I've resampled using the drum instrument. You can do it on the sampler instrument, but I found the results to have a slight tuning problem, so I find it's best to use the drum instrument for this. You can of course also resample when you're not on a sampling instrument. Again, use the drum instrument as your playback device. If you use a drum synth to play back your sample, you can always copy the sample to other notes on the drum kit, choose different sections of the sample, then you can play and sequence the chopped up samples. So that's the old sort of slicing thing, which I don't think this sampler does yet, strangely enough. Perhaps that's coming in a future update, but it's kind of a way of slicing. So you could also make different recordings where some tracks are muted. In this way you can have a resample without drums, one with only drums, etc. Once you've done that, you can make new patterns on your drum synth, and use these other resamples in different scenes. It's really, really brilliant once you get to that. I'm not going to go into massive detail here because this is already a very, very long video. So that's just about everything I can think of with sampling instruments and sampling and resampling. The only thing, like I keep saying, that I haven't dealt with is the multi-sampling, and I think that really needs another video. So I hope very much that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks very much for watching, and you'll see me in my next one.